It's a brand new Roundhouse. This is on deck.
Kick it.
Welcome to Splat Attack, a 90s podcast honoring the slime-filled past. I'm your Pepto-Dismal salesperson, Alex, and today we have a special guest host.
I'm your spycopter, eye in the sky, Trisha.
Joining me today is Roundhouse superfan and friend of the podcast, Trisha Haywood. Trisha, we haven't seen you since we covered Roundhouse on the feminism episode. How have you been since then?
I have been great, and to be asked to be a part of this once was an honor. To be asked back again, I feel like I'm part of the family now. Since the last podcast, I have had the chance to chat with many of the cast that joined us last time, and it's been an absolute blast getting to stay connected with them and getting to know them more.
Oh, I'm so happy for you. These people, everyone that I've had the opportunity to speak with is just wonderful, wonderful people. And every season, at the end of the season, I always get together with the crew. We do a special overview episode. We always talk about our favorite guests. And I always, anytime the Roundhouse gang is on, I always say the Roundhouse gang, they're flipping amazing. I love having them any opportunity that we get the chance to. But if you're here, and I see you wearing the same shirt that I'm wearing,
sporting my Alex shirt, yeah.
We're obviously talking some more Roundhouse again.
Oh, you know it. In fact, I would like to challenge you to a Splat Attack episode battle, pitting one Roundhouse episode against the other.
Me? You're going to challenge me to a battle, to a war, since, we're going to be talking about a war episode. I thought we were friends here.
Of course we are, but also the two episodes we're looking at today are Best Friends and the war episode. So it feels appropriate to challenge a friend to war, considering the topics.
I see. Well, challenge is accepted, but if we're going to do this, we have to have an impartial judge, and since my crew is making repairs that they've been damaging on the Splat Attack studios, we've got to have an impartial judge, and I know just the person to do it. So please welcome new guest to the podcast and big Roundhouse fan, Jill St. John. Welcome to the show, Jill.
Thanks for having me, Alex. I'm excited to judge some of a few great episodes.
Oh, happy to have you. All right, well, if we're doing Roundhouse, we've got to have some Roundhouse guests here. And I will say, prior to introducing who we've got, the last few episodes, we've had a lot of really great guests. And at the time we're recording this, it's right on the cusp of summer. And everyone's got plans. And it's just so happened that we didn't get nearly as many people as we had initially wanted to. But that's perfectly fine. We're happy to have who we have. So at the moment, on this very second, we've got Mr. Mock David joining us. How are you, sir?
Well, how are you guys? Good to be here.
It's good to have you here. And you're looking
We're
fabulous.
so glad you're here.
Looking
Thank
fabulous with your little Zoom filter that keeps giving you eyebrows.
Yeah, I love it.
It's there. And the little...
there.
The little maniacal mustache that goes along with it. We've tried
All of a
tinkering
sudden,
that,
that's just okay.
but it's okay if we don't get that taken off. But with Mark here, I think we've now. I'm ready. It's time to get this battle started. So let's meet out on the battlefield and get going. All right, for all of you Slimesters who are not familiar with an episode battle, the idea is we're taking 2 episodes of the same show with a similar theme, and we're going to argue essentially over which episode is the better of these 2 based on a certain criteria. Not to say that one episode is bad. It's just a fun way to really analyze these episodes. And we'll have 5 categories. I'm going to defend an episode, and Trisha will defend the other one. Jill will be judging for us, and then Mark will be serving as their interim, sharing stories of what it was like doing both of these episodes, as well as any other stories that he can think of about doing Roundhouse in general. We've picked his brain so many times. I think this is the fourth or fifth time that I've had the opportunity to speak with you.
Yeah.
It amazes me. Like there's still stories, and I love it every single time. So before we get into these the categories, we got to give our basic episode details. So as Trisha was saying, we are going to be looking at the Best Friends episode. This is from season 2, episode 8. Best I could find, because there's so little information about specifics for Roundhouse on the internet. Best I can find, the air date was August 23rd, 1993. Was written by Buddy Sheffield, John Crane, Becky Hartman, Ray Lee, Heather Sheffield, J. David Stem, and a special writing credit with David N. Weiss. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And was directed by Bruce Gowers. And as for the War episode, this was season 4, episode 12. Air date, again, best as I could find, was November 6, 1994. Was written by Jonathan Abel, Bernie, oh gosh, Anchetta. I hope I said that right. I'm terrible with names. I'm sorry. Glenn Berger, John Crane, Joanne Fink, Sheila R. Lawrence, Ray Lee, J.J. Paulson, Heather Sheffield, and again, J. David Stem. And this was directed by the fabulous Rita Sheffield. So here I'm going to turn the mic over to Jill and tell us what the categories are for this episode battle.
All right, there's 5 categories that we will be judged on. We have story, culture parodies, the dance routines, songs, and lasting appeal. So we will start with the storyline for each episode. So Trisha, you can go first.
So before we start this battle, little does Alex know, but this was one of my all-time favorite, most worn out VHS tapes, most watched episodes as a kid. So I get to tell you about Best Friends. This episode discussed the close relationship of friendships. It opens with a dialogue of how long-lasting a close friendship can be, even longer than a bad marriage. After the marriage analogy, Julene and Lisa, Laura and Julie, are 2 high school girls sharing secrets over the phone. Natalie and Sean display 2 best friends, Mandy and Jennifer, who finish each other's sentences, or in this case, fill in every other word. Julene and Lisa betray each other's trust and begin to look for ways to hurt the other one back. After the awful split, Julene begins to look for a new best friend, starting with the most popular girl, who is just too darn busy. She moves on to try and be best friends with her brother, but that doesn't end well. Julene joins a slumber party at the popular girl's house. Natalie and Sean, from previously, now are surgically joined at the hip and speak simultaneously. Lisa joins the party and brings the tension with her ex-best friend to a boiling point, which results in them physically fighting with pillows. After some embarrassment, Julene attempts to leave her new best friend's slumber party by pretending to be sick. After returning home, Any Dad suggests that she try to hang out with her old best friend again. After appearing on a daytime talk show discussing how they'd like to forgive and forget, each learns about more awful things each other has done to each other, further pushing their split. Any Mom and Any Dad try to encourage Julene that her parents could be her best friends. After a brief thought bubble, the bubble was quickly burst. After a pep talk from the psychic hotline, she attempts to talk to her ex-best friend at school the next day. The 2 do have a heart-to-heart and rekindle their best friendship. Reprise the theme song and roll the credits.
Now, before we started the recording for this episode, Mark had said just before, this is going to be hard because these were two really fun episodes. Is there anything that you remember specifically about? I know it's pulling memories for one very specific episode, but do you remember anything from this episode?
Things stand out for me. It was, I don't know how many times I played the little brother, but that was one of the only times that I was in the family. I mean, not only times, but like a rare time. And both of these episodes I was in a lot, so of course I love them. No, but I remember Mickey had a pretty fun gag in the schoolroom that was hilarious. The look on her face, and yeah, it was. Had a lot of like loose light playing around, which was didn't happen as often as I've liked, where things were a little intense, or if I hadn't studied the script like I should have, I was more nervous and scared than anything. But if I had studied well, it allowed us to have a little more light fun, and that came across on the screen.
I did have a question about the intercom principle.
This is just a reminder, there'll be no further marriage analogies. Class is now in session.
Was the dialogue for that recorded prior to the episode, and then you just had the thing on and then mimicked everything, or was like a mic inside of it?
I'm definitely speaking. That's live. I don't know if they had a filter on the microphone to make it sound like it was coming out of a can. But yeah, that's me. I had a little microphone inside the box.
Okay. I was always so curious because it sounded so different.
Now that you mention it, it does look like it could have been a VO, but no.
Oh, that's so fun. Do you still do the Don Knotts impersonation?
I haven't done it in a long time. Been a while.
Still got it.
Well, for the war story, and we'll try to go through this quickly, but I mean, the pacing for Roundhouse is breakneck speed anyway, so if you're watching, great, you'll have some visual cues to go along with it. But the show opens with Ivan and Mark as brothers arguing over trying a bowl of cereal, which results in them missing their bus to the school. The boys are dressed in military apparel. When arriving at school, Mickey is protesting with peace, but she is quickly called out for not knowing what she's talking about because it's not a peace symbol, but it's a symbol for an expensive German car. The class is full of children who can't tell the difference between both signs. The class continues to argue aggressively at each other over the silliest of things, and the class is eventually split up using political science as they learn how to get along, which ends up resulting in a war. The boys continue hurling scathing insults at one another, and the brothers end up at home talking to Annie mom and Annie sister, respectively. Ivan misses his dog, and Mark wants his sister to be quiet because of the stealth mommer. Annie mom catches Mark with chocolate and begins ranting at him. However, Julene enters as a censor with a document that has been blacked out like a military document. A spy copter is looking in on the Annie family, but is taken out as it flies into one of Annie Dad's gas explosions. Annie Dad and Ivan share a play on words as they ramble about the various terms used in war. Annie Dad shares his flashback of being in the military, and Ivan is still looking on how to spy. Soon after, he is called upon by a drill sergeant to do harm to his brother, but is reluctant to do so because it's his brother. Both boys end up in the military. Their respective leaders, Public Enemy and Colonel Sanders, argue with one another, only to be interrupted by Natasha. She offers a different solution as opposed to all this fighting. They could end the war with a simple press of a button. The two end up bidding on an atomic bomb with the amount of lives that they are willing to give up to use it. Colonel Sanders wins by bidding the end of the world as we know it, but he ends up winning absolutely nothing. The brothers are wondering about what to do and feel like they're doomed. As the military leaves, the brothers are still defeated as they wait for their destruction. Annie Dad rolls in with the dreaded button and pushes it. The boys duck for cover, only to realize that the button was just to their neighbor's garage door. Reprise the theme song and roll the credits. Now, you had said, Mark, also there was something very specific that you remembered about doing this episode as well. What was it you were sharing previously?
It was the food fight between Ivan and I at the lunch table. We were in the foreground, and people had lines upstage from us, which was an odd kind of configuration. But we just kept on getting more and more ridiculous the way we were throwing food at each other. Just like our head would fly back, and I would come back, and I would throw a thing at Ivan, and he would do some big reaction, and then he would throw it. And it was just kind of time. We just were feeling how it was timed out, and just had another example of like having loose fun and just messing around, almost trying to get each other to break. But yeah, that was a fun episode for sure.
Jill, do you have any questions for any of us regarding the story?
No. I think we're ready to move on to the next category.
Okay. Well, I'm actually going to ask.
Unless you have a question.
Well, I was going to ask Trisha, because she said this is one of her favorites. What is it about this episode that makes it one of your favorites, since we're talking story?
I think it was one that was super relevant to me as a young teenage girl. I experienced, the heartache of friendship and the slumber parties and the it was the era of giving your best friend a heart necklace and you had half and they had half. So that whole like Mandy and Jennifer joined at the hip thing, like I just related to it. But also it's no lie or no secret, like everybody, if they've watched me last time, knows my favorite cast members were Natalie and Sean. And so to see them portrayed as best friends as a kid, I loved it. But also I loved that in this episode, Sean was brought out of the mom character and out of that role and was just part of the kids, part of the school. She was part of the friends, and she'd always been portrayed as the mom. And I just thought it was really fun that in this episode, she got to just be one of, the young cast for an episode. She played the mom at the, third portion of the show, but she got to be just one of the friends.
Mark, I will ask you, just as an observer for both of these episodes, since we're analyzing both of them, do you see any similarities between the context of both of these episodes?
Yeah, I do, because we're basically conflicts, and yeah, I definitely see similarities. There's actually, I think, a reference to war in the Best Friends episode, which was kind of interesting to see the choices for these two, how that worked out. I think there was a vocal bumper or something like that in the Best Friends episodes. Roper doing kind of an Eddie Vedder thing or something.
This is war! This is war! War until the bitter end when you're fighting your best friend that goes rock! Like a knife that's in your back and see the stab! Learn the secret that was black!
It's interesting to note that we had the most light fun in the most confliction themed episodes. That was a blast. Fighting, this is so fun.
Oh gosh, doing theater, the ones where you get to argue and you have the most energy, those are the most fun ones. Even if it looks so scathing and vicious, but it's so much fun to portray. So no, I get that. I also find it interesting that there were, which we'll get into it a bit here in a little bit, but even in the as we're calling it for this episode, pop culture references, there were two little commercials that were very similar, because they had, over on the Best Friends episode, the tongue sharpener.
Just can't get those insults to come out right? Well, put a cutting edge on those put downs with a new tongue sharpener from Yo Mama Co.
But over on War, you had the comeback boots.
At a loss for words?
Yeah, it's like he put his foot in my mouth.
Then try these.
Well, they're too big. I'll never get them past my teeth.
These are comeback boots. They put words in your mouth. Here, give them a try.
All right.
But both of them were very much about having somebody who doesn't know it's on the tip of my tongue. I want to give an insult, but I'm not good at it. And both products would help them get those comebacks to snap and hurt and stab.
Tongue sharpener brought out Lisa's sass, and she had the comebacks.
You're so hairy that on your school ID, they put your A's down in dog years. That's hairy. And you're so ugly that when you go to the zoo, the animals throw peanuts at you.
But as far as differences, because Trisha's talked about why it's hers and Mark's talked about similarities, differences, it's just stakes, I feel like, outside of that, because whereas Best Friends is very much just, again, it's best friends. And it can be really frustrating and heartbreaking whenever you have that close relationship and it's split apart, and then you want to have that close relationship and you go looking for it everywhere. I mean, we've all, like she said, it's a relatable situation, but war, the stakes are considerably higher. And there have been examples, like even within this episode, where it's brother against brother, and that has, I mean, there's mortal complications to that, and I like how Roundhouse, this episode, the way it was written, in the fact that they're making light of it, but they're not at the same time. Which we'll get into a bit more in one of the analogies that I think is perfect for it. But I really like the way they portrayed both. There's one, and I'll ask Trisha to think of this for my episode. Think about something that you would like, you wish was in my episode, in the war episode, but something I wish was in the Best Friends episode. Was I would have liked to have seen a bit more of them together as friends, a little before and a little after, just so that way we can see that closeness, because there's more to Best Friends than just the split, and you're looking for that relationship. I'd like to see them together at points of it too, and this is what makes that relationship so special, because it opens with saying this relationship can last longer than a broken marriage, but we don't see that. We just see the split, and it's mostly the split. I would have liked to have seen more of what a real relationship, a real best friendship is like. Trisha, is there anything from the war episode that you would have liked to have seen included or a little different?
Putting me on the spot on this one.
I am. Ha
I think that it was a really tough topic to tackle and was done with really good balance of humor and seriousness. But I also think that, much like the feminism episode, the age I was when I watched it, I didn't quite understand the importance of it. And so I don't know what could have been done to bring it down a little bit to the level of the viewer. But I also appreciate that we were challenged to think about more difficult topics. And again, I have a much bigger appreciation of that episode now, years later, having watched it, than I did as a kid. So I think that would be a critique, I guess. Something that could have been different about it was that it wasn't something that resonated with me when I watched it originally.
One of the mandates for the show is that to be more like Bugs Bunny, in that you're not playing down to your audience. You're having subject matter that they may not get the context of, but will get later, and have it kind of reach up to something. That was kind of the idea there. That was like a mandate from the producers, from Rita and Benny and Buddy.
I think you guys did that so well. But
it's better than making you guys feel dumb. It's better than like talking down to you and like, you know what I mean?
All right. So next up is one of my favorite things about the show, were all the parodies of different pop culture references. So Trisha, why don't you start us off?
There were so many in the Best Friends episode that I'm going to just list them all that I can remember. And then I'm going to touch on the ones that I really think make my episode win the battle. Let's be honest. So it started with a reference to Monopoly in the best friend vows, and letting your friend use the best game piece. Next was headphones, the phone that's surgically implanted into your head. Betrayal mix, the tongue sharpener. Then there was a nod to the movie Heathers, where they refer to their 17 girls named Heather waiting out here to see you. The Nick shaving kid, Haterade, and my favorite, the totally indifferent towards her aid. Then it was not on TV, for when you're tired of watching the same stuff on TV over and over again. And the references here were great. There was the spoof on the beer commercial.
Take bad, more filling.
And there was a Roseanne dig.
Not TV, the channel that has all stuff that you absolutely will not ever hear on TV.
Dang, Roseanne, you sure look good in that bikini.
And the Nobel Prize going to Barney. And then Mark, there was a reference to Hollywood Squares where you wanted to take Pope John Paul to block. And then there was the MTV Slumber Party, which I think, if I'm remembering right, was a spoof on Street Party that was on MTV. That was a long time ago. Then in the tradition of Rocky and Kick Fighter was Pillow Fight, and then Pepto-Dismal. And then what I think wins the episode for me was the very first Sally Jesse Raphael reference to ever show up in Roundhouse. And that was iconic. So I think that one gives me an edge.
Hello, and welcome to Sally Jesse Raphael. I'm Sally.
I'm Jesse.
I'm Raphael. Our topic for today is best friends, assets, or pain in the assets.
Yo, my bro, that's the topic of the show.
See.
And there was a reference to Arsenio Hall. And Shannon Doherty endorses Revenge perfume. And then the last one was the Psychic Hotline with Dionne Warwick. And she mentions a LaToya Jackson needing a day job. So those were the long list of pop culture references. And as I mentioned, the one that I think is the best was Sally Jesse Raphael. And beyond that, watching it again, I just could not believe, we've said it before, how like ahead of its time Roundhouse was. But the headphones one, like the phones are, they said like, do you want to talk without using your hands? And I was like, it's like you guys knew that someday I would be in a grocery store listening to some guy like have a business meeting in the produce aisle because of his Bluetooth, and then you pull up at a stop sign and somebody's just having a conversation with themselves in the car. Like, I watched that and I was like, you had no idea what was coming. And yet here we are all these years later, and we basically have headphones now. And so that one stands out to me as just a great one. And then I also have to give mad props, the Pepto-Dismal, that Natalie and Sean were able to say that entire sketch, that entire commercial, word for word, at the same time, simultaneously, without skipping a beat. They didn't miss a word, and I was super impressed. So,
I'm sick. You don't look sick. Well, now you can with Pepto-Dismal. Pepto-Dismal simulates the effects of dozens of contagious childhood illnesses, including chickenpox, mumps, and distended bowel syndrome.
Those were my three favorites. There were so many other good ones. Mark, I would love to know if any of those were your favorites, or if any of the ones I mentioned bring back memories.
Yeah, the Mickey one was hilarious. Just the look on her face when she's like, "Oh, let me put you on speaker," and she's all.
Yes.
And you can hear Lisa saying, "Be like, hello, are you there?" So funny.
I wonder how she feels about that.
Oh my god.
I wish she was here. She was gonna be here tonight. I would have loved to have asked her. What are your thoughts on that?
She was so great in this episode. I mean, she just did so well playing the popular girl, and at the slumber party, she was so fantastic in that episode.
What do you have one outside of Sally Jesse Raphael that were some of your favorites?
I like Saint Raphael, and I could and I didn't have to worry in that sketch at all because all I had was one word to say.
See, see.
So no, that was a fan favorite too. I think a lot of people like that. We did at least 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, and I will add to that just by saying one of the things I really love about the show is how well the writers do play on words. And I loved the way they twisted haterade. I thought that was so clever. It's so awful. But that's the relationships, and it's a perfect a perfect twist. For War, much like you, I'll list them off and then talk a little bit more at length on a couple of them. But the show opens with them doing a Rambo reference, calling it Rambo First Dud Part 2. And then they had Strife, which was Life cereal. IHOF, which was the International House of Food Fights. Comeback Boots, which we mentioned earlier, with using an insult with Cujo, and another one using 60 Minutes. Commando Do with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And then we had, I couldn't quite make out fully what was being said because the quality I have is not very good, but it was like Drill Sergeant Flea Collar. I can't quite know what the full thing was called.
Drill Sergeant Flea hit collar.
And then there was Napalm Napalmalov.
I say torch it with napalm all detergent.
Well, it must be pretty powerful.
Honey, you're soaking in it.
There was Lower G.I. Joe.
I cramped, I bloated, I farted. I became Lower G.I. Joe.
Snoople, which was a play on Snapple, but they were trying to snoop. They had the Green Plastic Army Men. Whites Out, which was using white out. Colonel Sanders, of course, just that name in general. The price is too high, and then using the song War at one point. A couple of my favorites that I really liked in this episode was one, I liked the Whites Out. I thought that was clever because one of the most famous phrases in war is don't shoot until you see the whites in their eyes, and Whites Out whited out the whites in there, like it took out the whites in their eyes, and the army was marching towards. And do we shoot now? No. Do we shoot now?
They're coming to get you. Here's some of this.
Can we shoot now, General?
Not yet.
How about now?
Do you see the whites of his eyes? No. Well, there's your answer.
But the one I really loved, well, and I also liked Commando Do, just because I loved the Arnold Schwarzenegger impression. Commando Do. I can never, you can't say it just normal. You've got to say it Schwarzenegger like. But I really loved The Price is Too High. This was what I was talking about earlier with how clever and making light, but not at the same time. Because I really breezed over it going through the story. But there's John Crane doing his Bob Barker impersonation. And then Seymour and Sidoni being Colonel Sanders and Public. I always forget the silly name. But the two of them arguing with each other, but they're bidding over using the atomic bomb. Instead of just arguing and going to war, literally fighting with each other. No, they have the atomic bomb they can use. And it's just a simple push of a button. And the two of them are gambling over, oh, I'm willing to give 100,000 lives.
All right. What do you bid for this magnificent weapon? I bid 100,000 innocent lives, Bob. Does it come with its own plutonium? No, but it does come with cruise control and a CD player. I'll bid the end of the world as we know it, Bob. Congratulations, you just won yourself a war. Johnny, tell them what it's good for. Absolutely nothing. Say it again. Oh yeah.
It's so twisted and dark, but it's so snappy and quick, and like it's one of those things you laugh at. But at the same time, it's like this happens. These are almost very real conversations that they have to make at some point. What are we willing to gamble? over this kind of thing. And I love how, even though it was a joke, it kind of wasn't at the same time. At the very end, whenever he got the final winning bid of I bid the end of the world as we know it, which also is a reference, a pop culture reference. And John Crane was, oh yes, great, tell them what they won. And they go into absolutely nothing. It's like it's a joke. It's written as a joke, but it's not at the same time. It's a really hard hitting moment that really is a perfect analogy. It's played really high energy as everything is on the show, but it really brings in a very understanding way for teenagers who don't get all the complexities of what goes on in war. It's very what's the word I'm looking for? It's not dumbed down, but it's told in a way that people will understand, especially kids who don't know why all this is happening. And I loved that. I really, really loved that. And I love the fact that they were arguing the entire time over the stupidest things. Because now watching, keeping up with politics, which I'm not going to really dive into at all, but just you watch politics in general, people argue over the stupidest things. And it's perfect. It's perfect that Roundhouse is making fun of. I mean, it was going on then, it's going on now, and it's probably will always go on. Like they were arguing over, I can't think of everything they were. They'd started off with them arguing about cereal, and then going into food fights, and it's goofy, but it's not at the same time because it's relatable, it's real. Whereas one was real for kids at the time, but also I grew up in a time like right after 9/11. We all were there for it, but I was in high school. No, I was in junior high. And if I had seen the Roundhouse episode, this one right after 9/11, it would have hit all the right buttons on a way for me to be able to digest in a healthy way, because I've got to find the humor or I will snap. I've got to find something funny. The darker a topic is, the more I've got to find something to joke about it, because that's the way I deal with it. Not everybody does that, but that's the way I deal with it. And this episode was a perfect sweet spot. And obviously this is long before 9/11, but there was still political turmoil. There always has been, and I really like how they handled it, how the writers took that.
Yeah, we had Desert Storm and everything else around that time, if I remember right. Or the first time we went into Iraq. But yeah, no, we always kind of went quick with the humor with that, and I think using vernacular of you kids at the time, that you understood it, and you was like, "Oh, I understand that that's funny, but there's something else underneath that's going on here." And it was usually culminated in the song at the end, always. We try to tackle all these different, you know, this is funny, but also it's a very serious thing too, and let's all not do this. Let's all not fight, or whatever the subject matter is across all the seasons. They were really good at that, at tackling different issues with humor, but making a point.
Did you both, again, Mark and Trisha, because Jill, we'll get to hear yours in a little while when you get to the judgments. But did you have any segments, any political or not political, pop culture references that you really enjoyed in this episode?
I like absolutely nothing. That stuck with me, I think.
I liked a couple we've already talked about, and that was the price is too high and the comeback boots. But I think as a mom of boys, I really enjoyed the green plastic army men sketch, because those are around my house, and I just thought the different poses, it was just so well done.
Is it true? They end up everywhere?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because I never had those. My brother and I, we had GI Joes, but we like GI Joes. We didn't have the little army men.
Well, and we have them because now they've been made more popular by Toy Story, but they're in our house because those toys are all over our house. I mean, this was years ago, but oh yeah, the Green Army Men, it's like stepping on a Lego. I mean, they show up everywhere. So
All right, so the next category is going to be the dance routines. So Trisha, go ahead.
So the first dance routine in Best Friends, Mickey starts a solo and makes her way down the side of the stage where she meets up with Ivan and David, and Ivan eventually takes center. And then the second one, Ivan drops into the frame, and then he has this really cool trio with Alfred and Seymour, where the camera, they kind of break down that fourth wall and the camera comes in under them, and we're kind of in the dance, and it's really cool. You feel like you're kind of a part of it. And then the third one was Julian and Mickey had a duo. And one of the things that I really loved about this episode, and it only happened a couple times, was when one of the like dance bumpers and song bumpers kind of meshed and overlapped, and there was a song during one of the dances. Small group was singing while the other group was dancing, and that combination doesn't happen in every episode, so I really loved that this episode had that.
And I will concede there was that one routine you were talking about where it got really in the grouping of all three. That is probably my favorite routine out of every episode, because I mean, the dance routines are always phenomenal, but it's hard to distinct which ones are usually better because they're all so freaking awesome. But this one is different. And I think that's why it stands out, because I mean, they do all the hip hop movements and things like that, but then they just stop, and they're in this triangle, and they start just interlocking their arms and their hands and their fingers, and the way they choreograph just that. It's very, very much like Helping Hands from Labyrinth. They're just linking each other, and it's really a cool thing.
It looked so simple, and you know that none of it was simple. Like watching it, it was so flawlessly simple, and I'm sure that it was not simple. And I might add, my episode was choreographed by Ivan, so any fan would be very excited by that little tidbit. But also, I really loved his choreographing. I could usually tell. Once I started to pick up as a kid that he had choreographed episodes, I'd try to guess, because you usually didn't find out till the credits at the end. So I'd try to guess, is this an Ivan episode?
Yeah, you can tell.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to, like, this is really cool. I hope I have one that really stands out in mind now. Not one that stood out like that. I'm not saying that they're not good. I'm saying it didn't have anything that really distincted itself like that one little moment did. But as for the ones that was on mine, the first one we had Ivan, Mickey, Brian, and Alfred and Seymour. They have a big group routine, and they use boxes that is, leaning on, sitting on, moving around, all that kind of stuff. The second routine we had was Brian, David, Ivan, Alfred, Seymour. Again, just a big group routine. And then the last one was Natasha, Natalie, and Mickey all have solo dances that are using a fan, like one of those little, oh, I'm hot at a Baptist church, fan, a little Japanese fan. But they're all, and again, there is no bad dance routine, but these were your pretty standard fare as far as Roundhouse goes. But even a standard Roundhouse dance routine is better than most dance routines that you would see on any kids program. Like, this is pro level stuff. It's fantastic. But no, for me, no real standout moment like that one with the interlocking hands. So I will not be upset if I lose this round. I will concede to that one. Mark, did you ever dance?
Yeah, I danced in the first season.
Yes.
I danced at the end. I started getting spread around because they needed me more for singing, and I wasn't the sharpest dancer. I didn't pick up as fast as everybody else because I wasn't really trained as they were. So as the season went on, I did less dancing and more singing.
How long at the end of the episode? Because they always did the, reprise the theme song or roll the credits, and then there's just this big dance party. And of course, on TV, the camera just fades out and finishes, gives the little logos, and they're done. How long did those usually go? Did they just do just enough, or did they just keep
Yeah,
going?
just as you saw, that stuff was live. We didn't rehearse the stuff during the week. The little party stuff. I would always go over and pick up John Pena's bass. He'd let me touch it. So and act like I was playing with them because I love the band members. I like to hang with them. And no, it just took as long as it took. You can see the speed of the credits depending on where the show landed, time wise. I think they had a block of like a minute 30 for that to happen within. And then they would cut to the logos when they had to. But you can tell the speed of the credits determined how long we were. If we were going too long,
I was gonna say, I'm glad you brought that up. There were a couple episodes that must have ended super early because we got quite a few minutes of the dance party at the end. And it was always so fun to see. And I would get so bummed if it cut right up or if it just ended right after the last dance and we didn't get to see any of that, because that always seemed, so natural and unrehearsed and just
always like that. Yeah.
you guys just being you and goofy and real and fun. And
there were times when we'd see some of the gang mingle in with the audience that was watching. Did anyone ever dance along or try to interact back?
No. Only when they went up, like Ivan would go up and sit down with people and stuff like that. They would just have a natural reaction, but nobody came down on the stage by the cameras and stuff. Everyone kind of stayed put.
Yeah.
When we're doing it live to tape, the energy would be different and things would get sped up, because the energy is naturally higher. So yeah, they would sometimes find themselves, oh, we're done at 22 minutes. Well, now what are we going to do?
All right, so the next category is the songs. One of my favorite parts, another one of my favorite parts of the shows. Trisha, go ahead.
Well, Alex, you asked me why this episode was one of my favorites, and I wanted to wait to talk about the songs until we got to the songs, but the songs in this episode are partially why this was one of my favorites. The first song, This Is War, we already kind of mentioned it. Mark mentioned it earlier. It just kind of had a grunge feel to it. And I grew up in Seattle. So, that was just kind of the style of music that we were listening to, or that kids around me were listening to. So I needed to know was cool, So I was not that cool, but I enjoyed it because I was just getting into kind of that style of music.
It's gonna be a brutal battle that will take the other down, and until they try to destroy there is no peace. It's only war! This is war!
But then, I think my all-time favorite song of the whole series was The Bridge. And it was just so different than anything else that was ever done. I think it took everyone by surprise when, I was going to say string quartet, but there was more than four out there. There was almost an orchestra out there, but pretty much all string instruments and the giant drum were out there. And there was just never another song done that way, arranged that way. And the 4-part harmony that the girls did, it was beautiful.
And that is the bridge where visions grew and people knew that they were waiting for the monster to come over. When they saw it was coming, they think that it was real. Oh no, they didn't care. Some people stand below the bridge never.
And I much later, just recently learned that was one of Benny Hester's songs that he not only wrote, but he had performed. years before. And so I looked it up, and it's from an album from 1972. He had recorded that song on an album of his own, and then it was done on Roundhouse. And that song just, I mean, for 30 years, that song would come to mind. I'd find myself humming it. And I just think it's beautiful. I think it's one of the most unique, well done songs in the whole series. So for me, the songs in this episode were also why it's one of my favorites.
For the war episode, well, we couldn't have This Is War because that was already taken. So we got a war on our hands, which was super, super aggressive. And then the last is What Good Is Making War. I really love the message in this one, which you could even take as a literal standpoint or even as an analogy standpoint, which I really, really like, because we should be peacemakers. Just in general, we should be peacemakers. That's what we're called to be, and not be starting conflict just to stir the pot or any of that kind of stuff. And I really loved the whole purpose. It's very much, war. What is it good for? But you can't use that song, and it's still got that same mentality, though. What's the point of it? What good is it? And I really like the message behind that one a lot. There's so many great messages in these songs that they would put together, but given the nature of the context for this episode, I thought it was a fantastic ending.
Yeah, that was what Did David Nichols sing on that?
He did.
Yeah, that was great. It's always wonderful to hear those guys sing that.
I was going to mention exactly what Mark just said. I know it's your episode, but I still liked that.
I defended some of yours too.
I liked that episode as well. It was nearing the end of the whole series, and so we were starting to see more different people highlighted. And I always liked when we saw somebody different sing, get a chance to have that spotlight. And that song was Natalie and David Nichols, and I don't remember other songs that they sang, very, very sporadic that they got to be the leads. And so I really enjoyed that they got kind of that moment. And then again, the song, the lyrics are pretty incredible. It kind of has a similar message, funny enough, to the last song on the Christmas episode.
Yes.
About world be still, find peace, completely different style, but similar message that it was trying to convey.
All right, for the final category, it is the lasting impression of these episodes.
I feel like when looking at these two episodes, obviously they're both phenomenal for different reasons, and they both have a lasting appeal, and they're both still relevant today. And perhaps the war one feels really relevant because of the climate of our world right now and what's going on. So this is going to be a tough one for, relevancy and the appeal. But I think if we're talking like lasting appeal and, is it still relevant today? Best Friends definitely still is. I know it's still appealing to me because even if you go look at my playlist of Roundhouse episodes I have, it's one that has been watched far more than others. So even today, it is one that I still enjoy and I have gone back and watched. So it is still appealing for sure, but the message of it, I feel like is still so relevant. And if kids watched it today, yeah, it might have been simpler times. And the idea of, friendships and figuring out who you are, figuring out who your friends should be, that whole just theme of loyalty and who can you trust and the hurt of broken friendships, that all still rings true today for kids. And if not as much, then it's harder, it's more for these kids because now they have social media and they have technology. And so, I was thinking about, oh, you shared my secret. Now it's a text. Now it's a social media post that ruins a kid's life. Or, the walls that were built, that's being unfriended or being blocked. And it's so instantaneous that a friendship can end. And even that term being unfriended is just so hard for a kid to understand. And so I feel like the weight of that message and the relevancy of that message is still just as relevant today, if not more today. And applies to kids and adults alike, because to say that I figured that all out as a kid would be a lie, and friendship as adults is hard as well. And so I think that the message of that episode and the appeal of that episode definitely is lasting. And also, I have to mention that the pop culture references in that one actually still, some of them, my kids laughed at. So there are many that I have to explain. What does that mean? And they got the haterade, they got the Pepto-Bismol, because they know the whole jingle and the hand motions to the Pepto-Bismol jingle. So I feel like it still has a lasting presence today, and it's still funny, just as funny as it was then, and it has a great message.
For war, very, very much. It is still relatable today. Like you had said a moment ago, both of these are still very relevant. And I think even more relevant, both of them, more so today. Again, with social media. Yes, you have what you were talking about with social media and having that, trying to maintain a friendship and that kind of thing. But also, I don't remember being as politically aware as a kid as these kids are nowadays, especially junior high and high school, because I'll see kids now just be so done with one political party, which just amazes me. Like, why are you? I mean, yes, I'm happy that you're involved and you want to know what's going on in your world. I didn't care two licks when I was your age, but to see that you're this passionate about it just amazes me, because we didn't care when we were in junior high and high school. And now look at the things that's happened in the country, just the country alone in the past 4 years. Well, not necessarily Pat, to say 8. The last two, look at when Trump was in and look what Biden was in and the things that's happened here within the country, and then look what's happening around the country, and that kids are still very, very much aware of what's going on. And a big push of that is in social media, because they're able to plug into the news far easier. I mean, yes, there was news. There's always been news, but kids didn't watch it. Kids didn't watch news when we were 90s. Even when Nick News was on, so much of us didn't watch it. It had its fan base, but most of us didn't care. But now, because it's at our fingertips, and then everyone starts talking, and then they got to look into it. Like, oh, is this true? Is this really happening? And to go along with what you had mentioned about pop culture references, so much of this episode, it's the same. I don't think there's really a single reference in the war episode that hasn't, it's just as relevant now. It's not changed with age. Like the most iconic one, Sally Jesse Raphael, for yours, kids today don't know who that is, but they know everything in this episode. They're still making Rambo movies. They know Life. They know the IHOP. They know Play-Doh. They know who drill sergeants, and everyone still uses that frame the phrase. I love the smell of napalm in the morning. I've heard Sam saying that uh, playing Minecraft when he drops lava on something. Like, he doesn't know what the movie's from, but he knows what napalm is. And they're still making Snapple, like we had mentioned earlier, Toy Story with the green plastic men, Whiteout, Colonel Sanders. They're still doing Price is Right with Drew Carey now. War is an infinitely popular song. All the pop culture references have not aged in this at all. All the pop culture has stayed relevant throughout the past few decades. Um, but I'm amazed, and not in a good way, but I'm amazed at how aware kids are of how awful politics can be. I'm very happy that they are aware of politics and they need to be involved and they need to know what's going on. I just wish that the politics weren't so awful, and that there would be more change in a positive light. But that's the thing. This episode is all about division, and look at how much more divided we are as a country now, probably more so than we were in the 90s. So very, very, very relevant today.
Everything you guys touched on, everything you guys hit it all on the head, especially with the I think in terms of news, anything that would be relevant to me back then was music related. What was going on with the band, or what was going on with, different things. The closest I got to politics as a kid is if, like, a local congressman closed a dance club that I loved so much, and they closed it because of noise complaints. That's about as political as it would get. It's like, you kept me from dancing, man. Like, what's the, but I think that's one thing about the whole show, is that the themes that they chose are kind of timeless. No matter, little cultural references here and there may change, but the message still gets put across. And that was the great thing about the show.
All right. Well, our arguments are locked in, and we're going to give Jill more time at the mic since we've bogarted so much. But before we go into her final judgments to analyze and give us her verdicts on each category, we're going to pause for a commercial break, see what all is going on in the world of Splat Attack, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Roundhouse and the Big Orange Couch will snick again after this.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Splat Attack. If you are enjoying this episode, please hit the like button, subscribe, make sure to hit that notification bell, leave us a comment down below. If you are listening on a podcast app, please leave us a review. These very simple actions on your part make a big impact for us. If you enjoy getting together with like-minded people and reminiscing about what TV was like back in the day, and having that water cooler talk, then join us over on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/splatattack, where we get together for live streams, which we're now calling Slime Streams, twice a month. We have bonus mini-sodes every Friday, as well as early access to our episodes and behind-the-scenes looks into our main timeline episodes. Quite a bit going on. Always something over on our patreon.com/splatattack.
I know Crystal Lewis has got an album called The Seasonal Thing that everyone should go check out for Instagram for all the information on that. She's always playing around town, and she just is crystal clear as ever. She's just a beautiful singer and a great person, so please check her out. And I have an episode of We Baby Bears on Max where I play a crayon house that's possessed, and they asked me to just make up a language in the audio booth, and so that was pretty fun. And I also play a crow in that episode. So check out We Baby Bears from Adult Swim, or not from Adult Swim, from the Cartoon Network, but it's now on Max.
I know we mentioned it earlier, but both Trisha and I, gotta say, are looking really good representing the Roundhouse gang with our Roll the Credits t-shirts. Probably our best-selling shirt on our Bonfire page. Go to bonfire.com/store/Splat Attack store with hyphens in between to get your Reprise the Theme Song Roll the Credits Roundhouse shirt. We also have a few other shirts. We got some Stickly Double Dare, along with some Splat Attack shirts and some coffee mugs. So go to our bonfire.com/store/Splat Attack store with hyphens in between. The Splat Attack crew is headed over to LA to visit in person at SplatCon. SplatCon will be October 19th and 20th, and we hope to see you there. Get your tickets for SplatCon. Make sure to use code ATTACK10 to get 10% off of your tickets. Use ATTACK25 to get $25 off your hotel bundle, and we hope to see you in October. Tune in next time, Slimesters, as we get a bit spooky. We have another versus battle, pitting Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps against each other again with two classic ghost tales with two very good friends of mine. You will only catch the slime-tastic action here on Splat Attack.
We now return to Roundhouse and Snick, only on Nick.
All right, welcome back, all you Slimesters. We are now going to let Jill take over. We're done arguing. No more. We're finished. We'll hand things over to her and let her give us her verdicts on what she feels about these episodes. So, Jill, my dear, take it away.
All right. Well, both are good episodes, and I didn't want to say this beforehand because I was supposed to be impartial, but like Trisha, the best friends episode is my favorite episode. So while they were both good, I think best friends did edge out on all of the categories. The first dance bumper in the best friends episode with Mickey, Ivan, and Sid, that is my favorite dance bumper out of all the episodes. The bridge is my favorite song out of all of the episodes. So I try to, really look into the war episode. I did watch it last night to go over it. There are a lot of good parodies. I would say they kind of tied almost with the parodies because there's good in both, and it's hard to pick like which one edged out more than the other. So I will put a tie for the parodies because I do like both of them. But as far as the storyline, the dance, and the songs, I think Best Friends would edge out War for me. As far as the lasting appeal, like both of you had said, you gave your arguments, and I do agree with both of them. So I feel like that would also be a tie for me because they both kind of resonate to this day still. Like you still have your friend issues, still have the war issues. So it's kind of hard to pick what's what between the two of them. So I would say a tie for parodies and the lasting appeal, but then best friends for the other three.
All right, so 5-3 or 5-2. Well done, Trisha. Well done.
Congratulations.
Yes. But they are both great episodes. There is no bad episode of Roundhouse. There isn't. They are wonderful episodes. If any of you ever get the chance to watch any of them, go, please. Big advocate for this show. It's wonderful. But I do want to ask both Jill and Trisha, prior to this episode, we were saying, what is our rankings? We always do episode ratings for our shows. And for all of you Slimesters, we rate like a report card, A through F. And then we have 3 tiers above an A when it far exceeds expectations, S, double S, and triple S. So I'm going to start with Trisha. What do you rate Best Friends?
I kind of went back and forth between whether it would be an S, double S, or triple S for me. It is in that range. There are a few other episodes. I'm kind of an OG girl. Season 1 was my jam, and there are a few episodes that might be a little higher than Best Friends for me, and that's why it was one of my favorite. So I am giving Best Friends an S because it is definitely above an A for me. And it is just a remarkable episode. And there are so many A episodes that it has to be higher than that. So I'm giving it an S. As for War, I gave it a B simply for the reasons that I said before. I had also given Feminism a B. That's probably the lowest that any episode could go in my book.
Same.
That
Absolutely
and it's
same.
hard to give anything a B, but simply because it wasn't an episode that I connected with as a kid, and it was not something I watched over and over and over. It's not one that stuck with me. It's not one that I've taken with me into the years, after. It's the only reason that I gave it a B. And I kind of am wondering if it was sort of a gender thing here. As a kid, I wasn't into the Rambo, G.I. Joe, war kind of feel. And the Best Friends one felt more like it might have been geared towards girls. Not to say that boys didn't like that one, but I kind of feel like that might be why the war one wasn't one that I connected with. But for those reasons, I give it a B.
Okay, that's fair. Jill, what about you?
I am also giving Best Friends an S, just because it has my favorite dance bumper, it has my favorite song, so it ranks high. War, an A minus. I don't know if you can do an A minus. I mean, it's not like it's a good episode. It's like Trisha said, it didn't really like not I don't want to say interest me, but it between the two, it wasn't like as like I wasn't really into like the war stuff or that kind of fighting. I did like how everybody had like the themed outfits. My favorite things is the where Mickey was going between the peace sign and like the expensive German car. I actually went to the grocery store a few years ago and they had one of those big cookie cakes, and someone tried to draw a peace sign, but they didn't quite finish it, and it was just the Mercedes sign. And I remember taking a picture and I posted it in the Roundhouse group, and I'm like, look, it's an expensive German car.
That's great.
I don't know if anyone actually bought it, but
well, I gave Best Friends B and I gave War S. No, I'm kidding. I didn't do that. I didn't do BS. Best Friends, I did give a B. And like exactly like Trisha, B is the lowest any Roundhouse episode goes for me. And the only reason I gave it a B is because, like I said earlier, I would have liked to have seen more of the closeness of friends. Because yes, the split is part of it. But there's so much more to a best friend relationship than just the split, and that's what I would have liked to have seen, not just the conflict, but also how the two relationships, how best friends can also push each other in a positive direction whenever there's bad things that are happening to them, and how they're there, why they're best friends. That's what I really would have liked to have seen. And that was the type of thing that I was looking for most of my life. Because I mean, yes, we've always had those people that we said were best friends, but it was face value. It wasn't until we really had that connection, and we didn't know they were best friends until a specific moment. And then it's then, this person is my brother, this person is my sister for life. And and then we never really call them best friends. It's like, oh, this is my brother, this is my sister. They've joined the ranks of family. But I would have liked to have seen more of that, where the conflict surrounds around them, but how the two of them push each other a little farther. I guess it's a context thing, but that's the only reason why I give it that, because I would have handled it a little differently. But as far as the war episode goes, I did give this an A. I would normally, I think most Roundhouse episodes I would put as an S, but to be perfectly honest, because they're exceptional. But the only reason I kept War a little bit lower was just because it's War. It's ugly. It's gross. I don't like it. But I love the way that Roundhouse handled it. And I don't like talking about war. No, nobody really likes talking about war. And it's one of those like the gang violence episode. You don't want to talk about it, but it's there, and we need to address it. And we shouldn't not address this for kids, because it's their world too. And while it was really well handled, it's not going to be one that I'm going to go to immediately, like the Best Friends episodes and some of the other episodes, just by nature of the topic. But it is still expertly handled, and I really love the way they handled it. All right, well, we are going to go into our final segment, which should be just a few minutes, but it's a lot of fun. I always like when we get to do this. We're going to do a segment called Retro Replay. Retro. Retro. Retro Replay. All right, for Retro Replay, the way this works is if you've ever played the game, seen it, you're pretty much going to play Retro Replay. I have a few clips. We're going to do 3 clips per episode, and I will ask you a question based on the clip that we saw. So I am going to get the timer right where it needs to go, and then I'm going to share screen.
No way! I'm only telling you this secret because you're my best friend. If anybody found out, I would fully die.
Laura, Julie, I thought I told you no cellular phones in class.
Mom, I wish there was some way I could stay on the phone all the time.
Introducing headphones, the telephone that's surgically implanted in your head. Now you can make a phone call anytime, anywhere.
Hey, are your ears ringing? Well, I guess they are. Hello? Nancy, what's up? Cool, can I talk to Nancy? Sure, let me put it on speaker now. Hello? Hello? Can you guys hear me?
All right, so your first question, each question is going to be worth 5 points. Make it nice and smooth. So your question for this clip is, how many students are in the scene?
7.
No, there was not 7.
8.
There were 8. 3, 3, and 2 in the back.
I came back on, didn't I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you were back there with him. All right, and that was Jill, right?
Yeah.
All right, 5 points for Jill. All right, going back to the same episode, gotta move my timestamp.
I wasn't using your shaving kit, I was just cleaning it.
That's okay, Tony. What's mine is yours. Why don't I treat you to a movie later?
Hey, little guy, why so glum? Well, it's my big sister.
Picks on you, huh?
No, actually, she just offered to take me to the movies. She let me look at her Veronica's Secret catalog. I'm starting to think she's not so bad after all. Well, now for those rare moments when you think you're actually starting to like your sister, there's Haterade. Oh, but I'm not thirsty. Haterade will quench all those warm, brotherly feelings and replace them with all the homicidal rage you usually feel for your contemptuous little witch of a sister.
All right, your next question is, what was the magazine that his sister let him look through?
Veronica's Secret.
Veronica's Secret, a pop culture reference that we didn't mention earlier. It's not Victoria's Secret. It's Veronica's Secret.
Done.
I love John Cannon in that.
All right, that is 10 points for Jill. On a roll. All right, last clip for this episode.
So, what do you see in my future?
Well, I see your best friend. She's very unhappy. She's standing behind a cardboard wall.
What else do you see?
I see LaToya Jackson needs a day job. And I see a girl with a very unusual hairstyle.
Is it Mandy and Jennifer or Nandifer? Hey, Laura. Hey, Dijon. We're as close as we can get now. We're one person.
And the question for this clip is, what did LaToya Jackson need?
A day job.
Day job. 5 points for Trisha. That's so fun. I love that moment. The way Seymour plays that up is so perfect. Oh gosh, I love that one. All right, and then we are going to move on to our next episode.
Boys, no problem was ever solved with your fists.
Well, yeah, you're right. So I guess I'll use my feet, too.
I'm not going to have to separate you two. I'll separate the whole class if I have to. Oh, I know what. We'll make a political science lesson out of this. All right, now, everyone on Jay's side of the room is a citizen of Kurdistan. Everyone on JJ's side lives in the Republic of Squatvia. Now, both nations must learn to get along for the entire school year. At least until lunch.
And your question for this clip is, what was the names of the competing sides of the school?
Squatvia and
Kurdistan. All right, that is, I'll give 5 points for both of you since you both mentioned them. So that's 10 for Trisha, 5 for Mark, and 10 for Jill. So we're getting a close game here. All right, 901 is our next one.
Interest in your old Play-Doh? Then try this. Commando dough. It's a modeling compound and a plastic explosive.
Cool, let me try. Oh! It blew off my hand before I could even get it open.
That's why Commando dough only comes in 2 cans. Most people don't play with it more than twice.
Does it come in a barbershop playset?
Commando dough for all your sculpting needs. Unless you like Claymore.
I'm laughing at myself.
So the question for this clip is, what was the name of the competing dough against Commando dough?
Claymore?
It wasn't Claymore.
Was it? Oh.
It's a trick question. Any other final guesses?
I don't remember.
I will say Clay is in the title.
Claymore?
It's not Claymore.
Play-Doh.
It was very, there it was, Play-Doh. It was Play-Doh. And then at the end it was like, unless you like Claymore.
Oh.
So yeah. So
joke.
it was a very subtle one that they put in there, Play-Doh. So
Oh,
who had that? Was that Trisha? Was that you?
That was Jill.
It was Jill.
Yeah.
15 for Jill. All right, last question.
Hi, I'm Bob Barker, and this is The Price is Too High, the game show that looks at the real cost of war. Johnny, who are our contestants today?
Well, Bob, that would be General Public and Colonel Sanders. Come on down! And the next contestant on The Price is Too High.
Congratulations, Johnny. Tell us, what is the first item up for bid?
Sure, Bob, it's an atomic bomb!
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a 1994 950i with a turbo detonator and a rust-proof chrome warhead. And it's all from Bicker and Bicker of Beverly Hills.
General Public. That was the guy's name. Never remember that one. All right, so our question for this is, what was the name of the game show host?
Bob Barfer?
Bob Barfer.
Did you say Bob Bartford? Bartfart?
Barfer.
Barfer. Bob Barfer.
Bob Bartford.
A very quick one, but just like so many other Roundhouse jokes. All right, well that is what, 20 points, I believe, for Jill. So Jill won retro replay. Well done.
Tell him what she wins.
She wins bragging rights.
Bragging rights.
As admin of the Roundhouse fan club, she should win this one, and she should be the most knowledgeable of all of us. But this was a lot of fun. I had a good time with this episode. Before we wrap up, we have got to go to our closing question for all of you Slimesters who are listening. Closing question is, what topic would you like to see the Roundhouse gang take on, even if it was on today? Because there's so many that I would like to ask. Write to us via email at splatattack2021@gmail.com. Make sure to DM us on any of our socials. Just look for @SplatAttackPodcast. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, do that, because it's a cool channel and we're glad you're here. Interact with us wherever you can on social media. We're always happy to hear from you. Thank you so much to all of you, Trisha, Jill, and Mark, for coming out for this episode. I love this show. It's an amazing show. I know all of you love this show, and Jill, welcome for the first time, and
Good job.
it's been a blast having you guys. Thank you with all of your heart. Thank
I'm
you.
hoping to come back for another episode, and there'll be more cast members here that I could talk to.
Yes, I definitely hope to do Roundhouse again because, like I said, I love these people, and part of it is also finding new people to interact, so that way it changes the dynamic a little bit, and part of it is also I know how much glee I get out of whenever I get to see these people, no matter how many times I've seen them. It's like, and I know if it means that much to me, it's got to mean that to other fans too. So yes, I want to have you guys back, and hopefully more Roundhouse gang members next time.
Yeah.
But
Although I did really enjoy the one-on-one with Mark.
Yes,
Yes.
the Mark show tonight.
Mark always coming out, being a great rep for the show.
Yeah.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, wrapping up until next time, I need my crew's help to build the studio. There are a lot of repairs that need to be made after last week's episode, but before we can make progress on getting that finished, there are still a few literal walls that need building. So, Trisha, Jill, will the two of you help me out put this together?
Yeah, have fun with that. I'm going to go hang out with Mark or some of the other cast, since we're all BFFs now.
Yeah, since John's not here, I'm stealing his chair and leaving. Bye.
but Jill, wait, I could use your help here. Trisha, don't walk off with the Roundhouse, guys. Hey, come back, don't leave me here by myself. Hey, reprise the theme song and roll the credits, I guess. That
blood drips heavily.
Yeah. What do you remember of that? What was that? What started that, and what was the idea behind that?
That started with messing around in rehearsal. I had just gotten my Don Knotts impersonation kind of down. Something clicked with it, and I finally got it. And I would go around to like the stunt coordinator and act like I'd been doing stunts for 50 years in my Don Knotts voice. And Max and Michael Gordon are just so like creative like that. And I don't know, they just came up with the idea.